Coming up on SOC Center, we're talking everything Merck auditors would need to know before conducting the actual tests. How does Merck compare to its industry? What types of controls does Merck use to mitigate its risks? And what types of red flags do we see with its financials? All that and much more. SOC Center coming at you right now. Welcome inside this edition of SOC Center. I'm Mark Contreras alongside Francisco Herrera as always.
We're going to bring in our industry analyst, Raj Patel, to find out the current issues in pharmaceuticals.
Thank you, Francisco. The pharmaceutical industry has remained strong in the midst of this economic crisis. Furthermore, in the annual Fortune 500 survey, the pharmaceutical industry topped the list of the most profitable industries with a return on 17% on revenue. Billy Towson, President and CEO of Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, recently said about the current economic downturn. Economically, the biopharmaceutical sector has faced challenges along with the rest of the economy, but our innovative companies stand tall as valuable contributors to the American economy. Further, evidence of this is shown with revenues in the pharmaceutical industry reaching over $602 billion last year. The audit team should give Merck a clean bill of health as it pertains to going concern. Guys, back to you.
Thanks as always. We're going to shift gears for a moment and take you live out to Merck CEO Richard Clark speaking about his company's analytical review procedures.
Well, I'll start off by saying this. Do not blame those poor ARPs on the production workers, okay? And that was a disgraceful receivables turnover year, in my opinion. We gave inventory away without collecting our receivables. My opinion, that sucked. From 2007 to 2008, receivables grew by 68%, jumping from $3.6 billion to just over $11.5 billion in 2008. The previous year, this account had only grown by 9%. We might have valuation problems. I don't care what type of business you're running, whether it be a lemonade stand, an accounting firm, much less a public company. When you turn your receivables over 2.07 compared to 6.65 times the previous year, you ain't gonna be successful anywhere, okay? Anywhere. No wonder our cash balances decreased by 22% last year and decreased by $1 billion, dropping from $5.3 billion to $4.3 billion.
So, what about the rumors of expansion?
What's that? Expansion? Don't talk to me about expansion. You kidding me? Expansion?
Expansion.
Expansion?
Expansion.
Expansion?
Expansion.
Expansion? You kidding me? Don't talk to me about expansion. What's that? Expansion? Don't talk to me about expansion. You kidding me? Expansion? I just hope we're going concern.
Okay, the blitz will be hard to follow that one, but we'll be back after a quick word from our sponsors.
Tiger is playing at a level unknown to mere mortals. Now he is primed to take home his 5th green jacket and begin his quest for the perfect season at the year's first major. A tradition unlike any other, the Masters on CBS.
Let's get to the flowcharts. Merck begins its sales journey by first obtaining approval from the FDA for its products. What a control! Orders then placed with Merck's sales team, but Merck says, not so fast, fellas, and views whether or not the vendor is on the pre-approved list. Gotta love this control to prevent sales into risky businesses. Moving on. After a vendor is confirmed as quality 1, the order is then processed. Once vendors have been confirmed and processed, a pre-numbered invoice and receipt is sent to the vendor warehouse and accounts receivable department. The pre-numbered invoices contain vital information for the order, as a description of the order, and as quantity bought by the vendor. And now back to Luis for accounts receivable.
Accounts receivable picks things up later, on in the day after it receives a pre-numbered sales invoice from the POS. What great teamwork by the departments. Once the accounts receivable department receives the invoice, they check whether the invoice has been paid. If the business to which it made the sale has already paid the bill, then a statement is sent to the business and a copy of the statement is filed. If accounts receivable receives the invoice and the business is not yet paid, then the department enters the sales invoice number on a calendar with a 30-day reminder. After the 30 days have passed, the calendar reminder alerts the department that the amount of the time has elapsed and the AR determines whether the business has paid the invoice during the 30 days. This is an important control when you have many accounts outstanding. In the event that the invoice is not paid, then the business is sent a statement with the amount owed. A reminder calendar is then set for 15 days in order to collect from the business. After this time has elapsed, the process will repeat itself. The only problem is, though, you have to wonder if the department understands that they have to write off any accounts outstanding too long. But other than that, things look great. And now to David for warehouse.
Last but not least, the warehouse receives a pre-numbered copy of the invoice from accounts receivable with the description of the item purchased. This invoice copy is then reconciled with the main inventory account. After the invoice copy is reconciled and the inventory account states that there is available inventory of the item purchased, a warehouse floor clerk is sent to verify the availability of the purchase inventory. If the product is not in inventory, the clerk rechecks the inventory account for possible errors, and if there are no errors, it checks the inventory purchase log for expected inventory arrival. After the inventory purchase log is checked, the invoice is stamped with the expected arrival date to signify that the inventory has physically been checked by a clerk and is then filed by date received in the backorder file. Strong controls here, but I hope access to the file is limited, otherwise it could be a weakness. If the product is available in inventory, it is prepared for shipping. When the item arrives at the shipping department, a clerk verifies both the copy of the invoice and the actual item purchased with a POS computer. Verifications are always a positive. The item is finally marked for shipment to the business, and the warehouse invoice copy is filed by shipment date. Guys, back to you.
Probably the most important process which is related to the sales is the utilization of the pre-approved vendors list, which is used each time a sale is triggered. This probably due to the fact that the sales transaction has connections to several accounts, receivables, inventory, and bears. Oh my! During the last 3 years, Merck has increased its sales by over $1 billion from $22.6 billion to a whopping $23.8 billion in 2008. It will be interesting to assess, since their revenues have increased, whether their processes are adequate or it is making sales to risky businesses. After all, their products are FDA approved and should only be sold to quality vendors. Now let's go to Francisco with accounts receivable processes.
Risk. I think that's something the accounts receivable department deals with once they receive that pre-numbered sales invoice triggered by each sale. Yeah, the receivables department conducts sales invoice reconciliations, and they even have reminder calendars, but do they write off uncollectibles during the right time? When the initial 30 days expires, the department is supposed to look into whether the invoice has been paid, but during this process, it is still